Okay, friend, can I ask you a question? Have you ever looked at a season of your life and wondered, God, how is this part of your plan? Maybe you've been praying, trusting, taking the next step God asked you to take, and yet it feels like nothing is changing. If anything, it feels harder than when you started. Friend, if you've ever wondered whether all your faithfulness is actually making a difference, today's episode is for you. Because I think one of the biggest reasons we've missed the breakthrough we're praying for isn't because we heard God wrong, it's because we mistake the process for failure. Today, I want to share 3 biblical truths that have completely changed the way that I see seasons of pruning, waiting, and growth. And I have a feeling they're going to change the way that you see yours too. Ready? Do you want to step into the calling God gave you and dream big again with Him, but feel stuck, buried in doubt, and constantly pulled under by the chaos of everyday life? Hey, I'm Amy, Christian life coach, girl mom, and wilderness season survivor. I help women gain confidence in their calling through spirit-led coaching and prophetic insight, because that's what finally changed everything for me. If you're ready for the confidence to move forward so you can get unstuck, grab a pen and some paper, silence the what's for dinner mental loop, and pop in those earbuds. Let's go. Before we dive in, I want to share something with you. I know how heavy it feels to wonder, what if I get this wrong? What if I'm wasting time? What if I'm not enough? That pressure can feel crushing, like you're being pressed on every side, running out of time and missing God's plan. But here's the truth. When you're anointed and called, there will be a crushing. Olives don't become oil without being pressed. Grapes don't become wine without being crushed. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels unbearable. But the crushing is not the end. It's part of the process. It's how God brings out what He already placed inside of you. Every woman who has stepped into her calling has walked through this very place. Fear doesn't mean that you're disqualified. It means you're standing right on the edge of breakthrough. You don't need the whole roadmap. You just need your next step. That's what Your Next Step Breakthrough Coaching is here for, to help you see clearly in the middle of the crushing, to uncover the one simple step forward, and to walk away with peace and confidence in where God is leading you. You can book a call with me at amywadlington.com/coaching. That's amywadlington.com/coaching. Okay, let's dive in. Several years ago, when my girls were little, we had this enormous tree in our backyard. I absolutely loved that tree. It gave us so much shade during the hot Colorado summers. The girls played under it. We sat beneath it in the evenings, and every spring it would burst into the most beautiful blossoms. It was gorgeous. We were pretty sure it was an apple tree, but year after year, nothing. Every spring it bloomed. Every summer, not a single apple or any fruit. Then one day my husband walked outside with a chainsaw. It was in the middle of winter. Don't worry, it wasn't in the summer. And before I knew it, he had cut off almost every branch. I remember looking out the window thinking, oh my gosh, what are you doing? I was devastated. The beautiful tree that I loved was gone. Our backyard suddenly felt empty. There was no shade anymore, just this bare, awkward-looking trunk with a few branches sticking out. I actually cried. I wanted my tree back. And the next spring, it started growing again. But honestly, it looked awful. It wasn't full. It wasn't pretty. It looked lopsided and scraggly. Every time I looked at it, I thought, my poor tree, it's never going to be the same. I was so sad. I was frustrated. And I couldn't understand why anyone would cut back something so beautiful. But then something happened the following spring. The blossoms came back. Only this time, there were more blossoms than I had ever seen before. And that summer, for the very first time, apples. Not just a few apples, hundreds of them. There were so many that I was baking pies, I was making applesauce, putting together apple crisps, and giving bags of apples to our neighbors. Even the squirrels thought that we had opened an all-you-can-eat buffet. It actually took another year before the tree looked beautiful again, but from that point on, it continued to produce fruit every single year until we moved. Looking back now, I realized something. I thought the pruning had ruined the tree, but it was actually preparing it to become what it was always created to be. Friend, I wonder how many of us have been in that pruning season thinking, how could this possibly be part of God's plan? But what he's doing is actually preparing us for fruit. Because here's what I've learned in my own life. The seasons that look the least productive are often the season where God is doing his deepest work. Today, I want to share 3 truths that I hope will encourage you if you've been wondering whether all your faithfulness is actually making a difference. Because I don't think that your breakthrough is as far away as you think. I think many of us begin to lose heart and feel like we're giving up right before we begin to see the fruit. Okay, truth number 1 is growth is really uncomfortable. One of the reasons I think that we give up too soon is because we're unintentionally believing the lie that if we're in God's will, it should feel easy. But when I read scripture, I don't see that. I see Abraham waiting, Joseph sitting in prison before he ever sat in the palace. I see David being anointed king and then running for his life, facing a giant. I see the disciples leaving everything familiar to follow Jesus. Growth has never been comfortable. In fact, when I think about growing, I always remember something from when I was little. I used to get these terrible growing pains in my legs. Maybe you did too. They would wake me up in the middle of the night and I would cry because it hurt so bad. I can still remember telling my mom that I didn't want to grow up anymore because it hurt so bad. Isn't that funny? As a child, I understood that growth could hurt, but somewhere along the way, I forgot that lesson. As adults, the moment our faith stretches us, the moment God asks us to trust him when we don't have all the answers, the moment healing becomes uncomfortable, the moment obedience costs us something, we start thinking, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Friend, what if nothing is wrong? What if the discomfort that you're feeling isn't evidence that you've missed God? What if it's evidence that he's growing you? Jesus tells us in John 15 that every branch that bears fruit gets pruned so it can bear even more fruit. Pruning is not punishment, it's preparation, and preparation rarely feels comfortable in the moment. Looking back at that apple tree, if the tree could have spoken, I imagine that it would have been screaming, "Stop, you're cutting off everything I love, everything I've worked so hard for. What are you doing?" But the gardener could see something the tree couldn't. He wasn't taking life away, he was making room for more. I wonder if God is doing the same thing in your life right now. Maybe he's pruning distractions. Maybe he's pruning old mindsets. Maybe he's pruning relationships, expectations, or even your timeline. Not because he's trying to hurt you, but because he's preparing you to carry more fruit than you can currently imagine. But discomfort isn't the only reason that we give up. Sometimes we simply misunderstand the season that we're in. So truth number 2 is you are not a flower tree. Let me explain. A few years ago, I was outside in the spring admiring another tree that was covered in beautiful blossoms. As you can see, spring is probably my favorite. I talk to God throughout the day all the time, like he's sitting right next to me. And I remember saying, Lord, I wish spring lasted longer. It's really sad that these beautiful flowers only last for such a short time. Then I sensed him gently speak something that completely changed the way that I looked at that tree. He said, Amy, it's not a flower tree. I kind of laughed because, of course, it wasn't. And then he continued, it's a fruit tree. The flowers were never the destination. They were simply the beginning. And then he said something that I will never forget. You're not a flower tree either. Friend, I just sat there because he knew exactly what my heart needed to hear in that moment. At that time, I was in one of those seasons where I was wondering if all of my obedience was making any difference. I wasn't seeing the results that I had hoped for. I wasn't seeing the fruit yet. And he gently reminded me the transition between the blossoms and the fruit often feels like failure, but it isn't. It's growth. Flowers are beautiful. They're exciting. Everybody notices them. But fruit develops quietly, slowly, hidden from view. No one applauds the roots that are growing under the ground. No one celebrates the long months between the planting and the harvest. but that's where the real work happens. And I believe some of you that are listening right now are living in that in-between season. The blossoms have fallen, the excitement has faded, and you're wondering if you've somehow missed God's plan. Friend, can I lovingly remind you that you are not a flower tree? God isn't just interested in giving you beautiful beginnings. He's interested in producing lasting fruit. That's why he keeps bringing me back to Zechariah 4:10. Do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. Don't despise the quiet season. Don't despise the hidden season. Don't despise the season that doesn't look impressive on social media, because fruit takes longer than flowers. So the question becomes, how do we stay faithful long enough to see the fruit? Truth number 3 is remaining produces fruit. Several years ago, my business coach taught me something that completely changed the way I approach growth. She said, every time you change something in your business, you're starting over. Think about that. You start a new morning routine. A week later, you quit. You decide to journal. Then you stop. Then you start reading your Bible consistently. And then life gets busy. You miss a few days and decide you'll start over next Monday. You begin exercising. Then you switch something different because you haven't seen results yet. Every time we keep changing something and chasing something new, we never stay with the one thing long enough to discover what it could have become. Her advice was simple. Pick one thing, stick with it for 40 days, then evaluate, adjust if necessary, and keep going with the same thing. As I thought about that, I realized that's exactly what Jesus teaches us in John 15. He doesn't say, keep finding new vines. He says, remain in me. Remain. Stay connected. Keep showing up. Keep trusting. Keep abiding, because fruit isn't produced through constantly starting over. Fruit is produced by remaining. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not grow weary of doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Did you catch that? Paul doesn't say if you find the perfect strategy or if everything goes according to plan. He says, if we do not give up. Friend, I wonder how many breakthroughs have been missed simply because someone quit one season too early. Not because God wasn't faithful, but because fruit wasn't there yet. And maybe that's the word that God has for you today. Don't quit. Stay planted, remain in Him, trust the gardener, because He knows exactly what He's growing, even when all you can see are bare branches. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one simple challenge. This week, instead of asking God, Lord, what else should I be doing? Ask Him, what have you already asked me to remain faithful in? Maybe it's spending time with Him every morning. Maybe it's continuing to pray for your prodigal child. Maybe it's showing up for the business that He called you to start. Maybe it's healing instead of pretending that you're okay. Maybe it's staying in His Word. Maybe it's simply trusting Him one more day. Maybe it's starting that book or that ministry or doing research on how to start the business, the book, or the ministry. Whatever He brings to mind, commit to it for the next 40 days. Don't judge whether it's working after a week. Don't quit because it feels ordinary or small. Don't compare your progress to someone else's highlight reel. Just remain. And at the end of those 40 days, spend some time with the Lord, evaluate what He's been doing, and ask Him if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Then keep walking with Him. Because, friend, God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for faithfulness. And faithfulness over time produces fruit. So today we learned 3 simple but very powerful truths. First, growth is often really uncomfortable. Don't assume something is wrong just because this season feels hard. Sometimes discomfort is simply evidence that God is stretching you into the woman that He created you to be. Second, you are not a flower tree. The exciting beginning isn't the finished work. Some of God's greatest work happens in the quiet, unseen seasons when it feels like nothing is happening at all. And third, fruit comes through remaining. The breakthrough that you've been praying for may not require a new strategy. It may simply require staying connected to Jesus long enough for him to produce what he's already growing inside of you. Friend, I don't know what season you're in today. Maybe you're looking at what feels like a tree with bare branches. Maybe you've been faithfully praying, obeying, and trusting God, but all you can see is what hasn't happened yet. Can I encourage you? The gardener has not abandoned the tree. He's tending it, he's pruning it, he's preparing it, he's growing deep, strong roots so that when the storms come, the tree will not fall. And if you will remain, there will be fruit. Friend, if today's episode encouraged you at all, but you're still trying to discern what God is asking you to remain faithful in, I would love to help. During a one-on-one breakthrough coaching call with me, we will uncover what's keeping you stuck, help you hear God's voice with greater clarity, and identify the next step that he's inviting you to take. You can learn more and book your call with me at amywadlington.com/coaching. That's amywadlington.com/coaching. If you remember one thing from today's episode, remember this: you are not a flower tree, you are a fruit tree. So don't give up in the season between the blossoms and the harvest. God is producing something beautiful in you, and in his perfect timing, the fruit will come. Until next time. That's it for today, friend. I pray that this episode blessed you or stretched you in all the right ways. If it did, would you please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts? It truly lights me up to know that this show is helping you, and your reviews help other women find the clarity that they've been praying for. All right, go clean off that pile of laundry from the treadmill or the chair or whatever piece of furniture it's currently living on, and I'll see you back here soon for another episode. Bye for now.